Mark's gonna open it. Great.
Good. You don't like the angle?
No, I was gonna bring, yes. Oh,
Okay, I think we're pretty much ready here. Attending. Susan is here. Okay, we have number one is, you want me to do the honors, Eugene?
Why don't we do the attendance and then
Yeah,
do you wanna,
attendance.
run the public
Attendance is
session?
done.
No, we just started the public,
Oh,
so just so.
so should we go around and say hello? Okay, we'll start here.
Lisa Brandt, board member.
Carter Booth, board member.
Katie Bordenauer, co-chair.
Frederica Siegel. Susan Wittenberg.
Michael, introduce yourself.
Michael Levine, online.
Eugene,
Eugene Yu, co-chair.
Stella,
Stella Fitzgerald, board member.
Donna,
Donna Raftery, board member.
Sean. Sean Sweeney, public member, not able to unmute, fine. Susan
John
Kent.
Paul. John Paul.
Yeah, board chair muted, and John Paul, can you talk?
Voting.
Hi, everyone. Got it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We have Roy Ruiz from Everett's office.
You want to say hello?
Hi, everyone.
What's your name and,
Roy Ruiz from Assembly Member Democrat.
thank you, Roy.
Hi, and John DeVerna, public member. Thank you.
Oh, hi, John.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so item number one is 110 Christopher Street, BSA Calendar, number 16-93BZ. An application to extend the term of a previously granted variance to permit the continued use of commercial stores at the cellar level of a residential building. This is on Christopher Street between Bleecker and Bedford/Hudson. And Carl Solfaro, are you here on that matter? We can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself somehow?
Doesn't say anything. He's muted. He's muted.
He's unmuted. Carl's unmuted.
He's not muted from our end.
But we can't hear him yet.
He hasn't said it. He's not saying.
He's having, just take a breath. He's having a technological minute.
Hi, Carl, do you want to try again? I thought I heard you before when you were at the beginning. When you were speaking. Still can't hear you.
No. Okay, no.
So now, Carl, you're showing is muted. Okay, now you're unmuted. Can you speak? Still can't hear you.
Tell you what, why don't I go into my office and work with Carl? I'll send him like a phone in. Carl, do you have a cell phone? I'll send you a cell phone number. Okay, good. Why don't you go on to the next item and I'll work with Carl to get that straightened away, okay? Does that make sense?
I think it's the only thing we could do.
Okay, I'll be right on it.
Okay. Okay, Carl is working. So then we have number two. Do you want to wait a minute for Carl or do you want to go on to number two in the committee? Committee has no opinion.
Well, it's not clear what we're discussing about this. So if you have like a little presentation about what it is we're going to do, then we could deal with it. But if we're not certain, then maybe we should wait for this, which is much more cut and dry.
Maybe we should wait give him 1 minute. Because if he makes the phone connection, it'll be very fast. And then he'll be waiting while we discuss the rest.
That's what
Yeah. Because the phone connection is that fast. Oh, David is absolutely notice. I don't know if any of you are on Senator Kavanaugh's list, but there's a hearing tomorrow about congestion pricing.
Yeah,
Anyone seen that?
yeah, there's so many, everyone's having meetings.
Yeah. You can go in person or by Zoom. Okay, so he said he'll be right back.
How are we, talking about this? Is this like a one-time thing or?
Yeah, Eugene and I have a draft letter that we can look at. You wanna,
Well, talking about.
I have a letter, but I didn't get it.
yeah, we have, yeah, well, Eugene and
I
I,
just wanted to point out that, and when we were chair, we had we reviewed the Brooklyn and the Long Island City rezoning.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention Municipal Art Society also issued something on this.
On the Green Fest.
Yeah.
what did,
No, I was thinking about them and I was thinking that they're a resource that we really should use.
we had a great meeting with them.
We had a few great meetings with them.
Yeah.
But on this particular issue,
Where is it?
yeah, I guess I can send it to you.
Yeah.
Just waiting.
Out about it, something they wrote about it.
Yeah, Municipal Art Society.
Oh, I wish that we had had.
Did a review and yeah.
Yeah, look at this.
Sure.
I
You want to,
can send
Anita,
it.
if you email that to me, I can email it out to the committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
If you have
good.
a link and I can just send it out.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
coming your way.
Right.
And you have 2 emails. Is that correct?
He
Either
does.
one works.
I'm gonna send them to both. That's how thorough I am.
You're gonna flog 2 of my mailboxes.
When in doubt, when in doubt. Hey, don't
Okay.
my pockets. What are you doing?
Did you send it?
Yeah, I sent it.
Good, thank you.
I also wanted to wish everyone on the committee happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scheduled the meeting on Valentine's Day at night, so I apologize for that. It looks like we have Carl back on, but I do not hear him again. Carl speaking. I mean, I see you speaking. It's really odd.
Oh, he's got some help now.
Okay.
You know, his screen had a different mute symbol in the upper right. Now it's gone, but yeah, I saw it. It's just a different symbol completely. It says mute. You can have him in the front, but then I know where he is. Otherwise, he might be taking a walk. Did it come through? What I sent, what Eugene sent?
Yes, I am sending it through to everyone now.
Okay. Oh. Yes.
Maybe he can hear us. Maybe he can answer in the chat. It's so,
I know, telephone should work. What's wrong with the good old telephone?
Yeah, Carl, if you are in the, if you're in the interface on the bottom left where it
This
says,
is taking too long. These should be together.
yeah,
Yeah.
there should be, you should be able to, there's an option to switch to phone audio.
Yeah, I gotta
Carl?
switch. That's right. He's gotta switch.
Does this mention community board review? Article that you sent through?
I don't recall that, no. I don't think so. But I didn't look that closely at the methodology.
Needs a closer look.
I see. It's just that sweet.
That is the issue, whether community board review is reduced or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Less regulatory, everything. That's really what it is. Yeah.
Did you watch the hour and a half presentation? Yeah.
Oh, look at this. They suggest conducting a pilot program. So Susan had asked for some examples earlier today, and the pilot program would do that.
But our interest is reduce community board review?
It definitely is.
Okay, so let's just focus on that.
Type 2 review. Oh, is that Carl?
It's a very quiet meeting.
We're reading. We're reading the article you shared.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
All right, I see Carl, he's dialed in. So Carl, I unmuted your phone, so you should be able to try talking into your phone. Still can't hear, that's odd. Can you try it again?
Someone said he needed he had a participant ID.
I just emailed Carl both the phone numbers to dial in, the meeting code and the participant code. The participant code, by the way, is 20202, if that's all you need.
Okay, he's there. It's just showing he's muted.
So he's going to dial in with Carl. You're going to dial in with your phone. On your email, I just sent you a series of phone numbers.
He's dialed
Okay.
in.
Can you hear now?
Good.
Yes,
We got it.
yes, we can hear you.
All right, you're right.
Perfect.
All right, you're in business.
That's good.
Oh, got
Oh, he's got two things going on.
So now you need to mute your computer and just use your phone.
Wow, this is really like who's on
We got it.
first.
Okay.
Okay. I'm muted on the computer. I'm ready to go.
okay, that works. We can hear you.
Okay, Carl, do you want to introduce yourself and explain
Yeah.
your relationship to this project? And give us a little background of what you're asking for.
Okay, fine. I'm Carl Safaro. I'm an attorney and I represent the owners of the building. And we've made an application to the Board of Standards and Appeals to extend the term of variance beyond the current expiration date, which I think is February 25th of this month, 2024. And the purpose of the application is to extend the term of variance for a period of years beyond the current expiration date, and to change or account for a change in the use of the retail space in the cellar from custom dressmaking and office to art gallery and music studio. This building is an older building built before 1960. It comprises of, it's 5 stories, residential occupancy, about 35 units, I believe. And in the cellar, there is the front portion of the cellar, which is open to the street. There's a stairway by which you can walk down and access those 2 stores. In the past, the BSA has granted permission to use those spaces as a custom dressmaker, and the smaller space on the side as an office. The custom dressmaker is no longer renting this space, and I believe is retired. And we have instead an art gallery and a music studio in what used to be the office space. The photos will show you, the photos that I sent with the application will show you what the building looks like. There's very little signage for the commercial space. From street level, you don't see any. But if you walk below, if you walk down to the entrances to the cellar space, you would see small signs, not illuminated, just to identify the entrances to the 2 stores that are involved. In the back of the property and the cellar, there is tenant storage space. And other than that, we have complying uses, but for those 2 retail stores in the front of the building. The intent of the application is to continue as we've been operating with the residential uses on the upper floors and the 2 commercial spaces at the front of the building. Both the proposed uses and the formerly existing uses are ostensibly the same in that they're in the same use group, zoning resolution 1961. So the changes themselves are rather minor. So we request opportunity to continue to use this property as stated for an additional period of years. That's the sum and substance of the application. No physical changes are proposed to the property.
Thank you, Carl. Do you have a date at the BSA yet?
No, we don't have a date at the BSA. Generally, they want to wait for your opinion.
Okay, that's fine. And do you anticipate making any changes in the application at all? Or you've given us the final text and request?
Yes.
Okay. Do any of the committee members have a question for Ms. Guevara? In the room, I see Donna has her hand up. Can you, Donna, I think you're the one with a question.
Yep. I just want to ask, what kind of installation are you going to do? Because a music studio use is very different from a dress shop or a dressmaking use.
I didn't see any soundproofing or insulation materials in place, just ordinary roofing, the usual 1-hour ceiling of.
So that I see that could be a problem for the people in the building if it's a music studio not having sufficient insulation to contain the sound within that space.
I'm not sure if any would be needed much. Most of what happens in the music studio is acoustical guitar lessons and storage of a large number of musical instruments that the tenant himself owns and uses in his business. I haven't heard any or seen any instrumentation there that would be loud and nuisance related. But I can find out more and give you more detail as to what the actual uses are there and whether or not they would entail a need for soundproofing.
Yeah, that might be helpful to have. Thank you.
And so just to be clear, and then Carter wants to ask a question, just to be clear, the music studio is currently in operation, and how long has it been in operation, if so?
It's at least, I would say, 3 months.
Okay. Thank you.
There,
Oh, sorry.
I met the gentleman who's the studio, and he showed me his collection, and it's mostly acoustical guitars and unamplified music. So I'm just going to confirm that and come up with a list for you, so this way you'll see detail what's involved there.
Okay.
May I ask a question, please?
After Carter, you're next. Carter and then Michael.
Thank you.
So I had a question. Can you tell us what is on floors 1 through 5?
Residential apartments.
How many apartments are there in the building?
Gotta look on the C of O. I was thinking it's about 30. But I need to look at the C of O to confirm the exact number.
And does the building have a tenant laundry room?
I didn't see any when I was there. If there was one, it would be in the basement, and I didn't see any there.
Because the board had originally opposed to this application in 1993 based on the long-term tenants in the building saying there's no laundry room as one of the reasons. And there's no more laundry facilities in the community. They keep closing.
Okay, well, I could find out. I could be wrong.
And I
My
just
recollection
see
is-
that, I see that that's a substantive change since the issuance of this. And these locations might be appropriate for a commercial laundromat if you need a commercial business in the building.
But is your point that people using the laundromat would complain about the music studio, or that they should find a different use for the basement?
Well, we twice recommended turning down this application at its inception based on the fact that,
In 2014, we approved.
well, I understand, but now we've lost even more laundromats.
Because we
So
turned it down because we thought a better use for the space would be a laundromat because it would benefit the tenants.
Oh, I'm just bringing it up. I mean, this is the basement, you're putting in a use, music, et cetera. I mean, these are reasonable things to.
Well, why didn't we complain about the dressmaker?
I don't know why we did not, but the point is that, if there's no facilities to do your laundry in any of these buildings and we keep closing and one just closed, the closest laundromat to this area just closed, then now people have to go even further away. So
we're saying this could be the perfect place for that.
But the tenants aren't complaining.
did you speak to
But
them?
no, where are they?
It wasn't posted?
Should it have been posted?
I don't know. I just raised that question.
Was it supposed to be posted?
Carl?
Well, yes, what was supposed to be posted? Yes,
Committee
can you hear me?
Yes, a committee member, and Michael, you're still coming next. A committee member has asked if you posted in the building this request for a variance.
No, we don't post it in the.
No, it was not
I
posted.
can, but
Okay.
I can do that if you like, but
Well, is that part of the process?
No.
generally, no, it's not one of the requirements, but if you think that's critical, we can do that.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Michael, your hand is up, and then Donna, and then Sean. I see you.
It might be good now because it's been so many years just to see if people can get it.
Michael?
Okay. My question is a simple one. I would like to know the hours of operation, first of the existing shop, and the hours of operation of the music studio. We know noise could be a problem, but what would the duration of use of the space be for the music studio?
Michael, you're very muffled. Is there something over the microphone or is there a way to?
I'm moving closer. I hope you can hear me
Much
now.
better.
Okay, I have to move close to this computer when I talk. So can you tell us what the hours of operation will be of the music studio? That could be a problem. Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Is it both? What will the hours of operation be? And what are they now?
The hours of operation are like from 10 o'clock to about 6 at night, but generally they're not open every day, neither one of these places. They tend to come later in the day. They use it also to store materials. For instance, the art studio, they store there, and you don't have people coming in every day. That I've noticed, because you have to make an appointment to see them in order to access the premises. They're not there all the time, and they're not there every day.
Are they there on weekends or only during the week?
As far as I know, just during the week. It could be on weekends. I mean, we don't have any restriction with them, but this is not like a full-time operation. This is more part-time than anything else.
Thank you.
Donna and then Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of what Carter was saying, and just to say, I think it's an interesting point, and whether we are required to notify the building or not, there is no way people would know to chime in on this if people don't know that this meeting is happening or what we will be discussing at this meeting. And you know, I think they did just lose the laundromat on Christopher Street, and there aren't many around. I've had other friends telling me that it's getting more and more difficult to find places to do your laundry as these close, and you've got 30 residential apartments up above here. So I think it's an interesting point to think about.
Yes, getting back to the point of the number of apartments, the COO allows 6 apartments for each floor. So it's 30 units.
30. Okay. Okay, Sean and then Frederica.
Yeah, maybe Mr. Safara knows better, but I know if there's a change, maybe to an alt 1, the neighboring buildings have to be notified. But as far as notifying the community on these kind of things, I think Community Board 2 is one of the few boards in the city that publicly posts. It's generally incumbent upon members of the public to visit our website and see what's happening. Well, let's face, oh yeah, it has to be posted in the chief newspaper. That's the only legal requirement for posting.
Thank you, Sean. Frederica.
I believe, and maybe Anita, you can confirm, that the BSA variance goes with the building, not with the specific use, the specific tenant. So for us to dwell on a laundromat or whatever the use is, we're just simply confirming that the use group 6 is allowed for another 10 years, not the particulars of the tenant.
Thank you. I do have a question for you, Carl. The 2 tenant storage rooms, is that storage, is that charged? Do the tenants have to pay for that storage? Do you know?
Where if there's internal charges for that, but that's what the space is supposedly used for. I've been in the back there and I've seen both rooms just full to the brim with boxes and storage and all types of storage materials. But I don't know whether or not there's a fee for it or a charge for it. I would think not, but I can confirm.
There are no cages. I guess if they were charging for it, it'd be lockers or something.
No, it's one big space. No divisions or anything.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee or community board members? Are there, if not, are there any members of the public with questions? I see we have some attendees. Oh, Amy Brenner is here. No questions from attendees or? That's fine. Who has the attendance sheet anyway? I thought I did. Okay. Okay, absent any questions, thank you, Mr. Safaro. Carter?
I'm just looking for variance here. What are the unique physical conditions that are here that would allow for variance to continue?
Mostly compliance with the drawings.
I mean, is it that there's no ground floor commercial business, or I'm not?
Color.
No, no,
Because
it's just complying with the drawing of proposed conditions. There was a limitation on signage, which I think we're in compliance with.
You know, my understanding
That's
is
about it.
my question was, you know, I'm trying to understand what the unique physical condition is that's inherent in the property that would allow it to qualify for a variance.
Well, you have to go back to 1960 resolution. I think I gave you copies of the resolution.
So
sometimes they elaborate on it.
So it wouldn't need to continue to reestablish this every 10 years?
Well,
No,
nothing's changed.
it's discretionary part of the board.
What's the,
Oh.
I think,
Yes and no, but that's,
Same interesting, tiny, benign use.
how is it interesting?
Well, it's not,
It's in a basement.
yeah, but I mean, a dressmaker is interesting. It's unique, right? They're independent people who are doing benign things in a place that's not habitable. And if there was a need for a laundromat, then I think the landlord would respond to that, or the tenants would be asking for it.
We have plenty of vacant stores.
But we're making work for ourselves. This is going back for what, 20 years?
Carl, I think I'm going to rephrase Carter's question. Thank you, Frederica. And just ask what the hardship is. How would you define the hardship?
This is not, the hardship has to be economic, and this is not about the economic hardship. This is something else.
I'm just asking him. If he has an.
I'm not even sure that's a requirement, because in 1960, it predated the 61 solution, which came up with the 7221 requirements for economic hardship and other factors. I don't even think those were considered when the variance was granted. I don't see this as an economic hardship.
Okay. Thank you. Absent any other questions or comments? We can thank you for attending. You can stay for our, oh, John, do you have one? John Paul?
Yeah, I was just wondering, once this would be approved, it carries over for 10 years. Can they have a change of tenant that fits under the same use? Like essentially another music studio that does use amplification?
Well, if you feel strongly about that, then, you know, we'd have to determine a level of decibels that would be acceptable. The board has been strict on it, even though we're in the same use group. You see, we had to make a change from a custom dressmaking to art gallery, even though they're in the same use group. The building department will accept without change of a C of O, but the Board of Standards and Appeals, they wanted a specific amendment to say exactly what we're changing to, and that's what we gave them.
Okay, so they could change tenants. You would just have to apprise the board? Or
Only
no,
if
there
they
would be no.
request it.
I mean, they've
Definitely
already
not.
changed.
But all these variances require to comply with laws, rules, and regulations, you know, beyond what's written in a specific resolution. So we have noise regulations, we have decibel levels beyond which a person would be in violation. So I guess it would come in under those regulations as to what the appropriate level of sound would be, what would be permissible, regardless of what kind of music studio there is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get confused, and I'm sorry if I'm not understanding your answer. Regardless, setting aside music versus what acoustic levels, a whole different type of tenant who falls under that use group could come in there, and that would be fine, and they could ride out the 10 years too.
No. The use is specific to what we asked for. Board has emphasized that. Standards and Appeals have said that if we change from dressmaking to custom dressmaking to an art studio, it's not permitted. They have to grant that permission. And the same changing from an office space to the music studio. Permission is required, and we requested.
Does that answer your question, John Paul?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm sorry for, so you're saying at this moment you apprised them because it came up for the, it just coincided with the renewal, or no, it's anytime there's a change of tenant or that falls outside of that approved one, you have to notice.
Originally, we submitted to Board of Standards and Appeals under the belief that the uses, since they were in the same use group, would not require an amendment of the resolution to change from A to B or B to C. The board notified us, no, we need you to file and request an amendment to change specifically from what you have now to what you're going to have. So we requested a change from the custom dressmaking shop to art studio, art gallery, I think it is, and from art to the music studio.
Okay, thank you for my thank you for clarifying for me.
Okay. You're welcome.
Any further questions?
I have one. Do you want me to put a notice in the hallway of the building? Because we can do that and say when the general hearing will be. Anybody wants to appear, they can.
Well, I think it would be better if you don't mind. Have you been calendared BSA yet?
No.
So no, you have plenty of time, and we can lay this over to next month if necessary, if we don't agree that we can vote on it tonight. And you can say that CB2 is going to be taking this up at their March meeting. And if anybody has anything to opine upon, they can attend our meeting and what the date will be.
Yes, yes, and we would appreciate a copy of that memo.
I could actually create it for you if you want.
I'll post it and we'll give it out to put it in all of the apartments and one in the hallway.
Okay, so we're laying you over till I'm going to double check it, and I'm 99.99% sure it's March 15th. Yeah, see, it's tricky when we have a leap year. Yes, so we're going to lay you over to March 13th, same time, same place, same telephone number.
All right, fine.
And in the meantime, Mark will help you work on a flyer, and you'll let us know that it's been put up, and then people can get in touch with us or appear, and that I think will be much better. We'll all be more assured that people know what's happening in their building.
Yeah,
okay.
No problem in giving notice to people.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're ready to move on to number 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2 is, no, you don't need, is about fast. I will read and note it. And I think, Eugene, can you put it up on the screen? Do you have sharing rights?
You have the document?
The one I emailed, there. No, it's a letter. Well, we can start with that. Yeah. We're going to, number 2 is green fast track housing. Secret type 2 rulemaking proposal from the Department of City Planning. And,
steal a copy and then I'll put it.
okay. Yeah. So, comments in this are, the comment period is closing, if I remember correctly, on February 17th. Am I remembering correctly? And So we can't really do a resolution because there's no time for the full board. We could write a letter about it. This is a proposal by the city to speed up certain types of housing developments. I mean, the greatest concern that I have at this point is the sort of the lack of community board involvement and review and required opinion in this proposal. This evening, Anita has pointed out, and I think it's been sent to the committee members, that the MAS, the Municipal Art Society, also has many questions about this proposal and has put together this document, which has been sent to you. I think Frederica was able to attend a presentation on January 29th, and she may be able to tell us a little bit about that. Do you want to?
This is a point of order. We have this as an agenda topic, but where does it go? Because we can't do anything with it. And when I'm looking at this letter, and there are portions of it which we may be able to send with the board's historical position on this, but I don't think we can make any substantive comments on it because the time frame does not allow for us. And I mean, it's just we missed it.
Well, but
the historical part, I think we can, because that is a consistent position of the board, which is eliminating, and that would need to be finely tuned.
Yes.
But I don't think we can make any comments.
Well, I don't know why you said that.
Because the board cannot vote on specifics.
This is not a ULURP.
But there are, as far as the historical positions, I think that's, if it's relevant, or should, the city be concerned about our historical positions. But it is the reduction. I mean, but we missed the dates. This wasn't put on last month.
Well, we want to make sure that if whatever historical positions we're quoting are relevant to what's going on. So I would like to actually see a show of hands of the people who logged on to the January 29th Green Fast Track for Housing information session and actually know what this is. Is there anybody in the room who actually attended or got the video after of the meeting to know what the substance of this is?
Well,
I don't see any hands.
I know, I've reviewed the whole.
I know, but did anybody listen to the information session? Okay, so I wasn't there when it was live, but I listened to the video. And very soon into the video, it says, no zoning regulations, no land use public review application process or building permitting changes will be made as a result of this. And after the meeting, I submitted a question to them about this. And this is a rulemaking. This is not a ULURP. This is called a CAPA action. They don't have to come to us. But I asked about if there was any reduction in community board input. And they said, this rulemaking only affects the environmental review process and not the land use review process or zoning. Under the new rule, projects that are eligible may have a streamlined environmental review, but would still need to go through the standard approvals processes, including community board, borough president, and city council review as they do today. You can see the proposed rules, blah, blah, blah. The section, that's the relevant thing. Now, if there's an EAS, we don't see that anyway. We only see the EIS. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no reduction in our input. And for us to say that there is not factually correct. And why would we go out on a limb to be negative about something that really doesn't affect us?
Well, the Municipal Art Society also talked about it in terms of a type 2 that wouldn't be regulated and that they thought it would lead to a lot of misunderstandings.
Right.
Because the projects weren't fleshed out or reviewed.
The type 2 projects are the projects that are the EAS type of project. And those are the ones that we don't see anyway. So they're just referring to things that there's no change in that. Type 2 is EAS, not EIS.
Well,
It would have been good to have that information ahead, but I asked them 2 different ways and I got the same answer. There's no effect on community board input.
Well, I know they say that, but it seems to me the intent is not that. Because otherwise, why would we be even doing this? I mean, the whole point is to speed up the process. So how they, and the whole slant of much that Adams is doing, nevertheless, City of Yes, is all about lessening our involvement. So they're not going to say that's the intent, but it doesn't make me feel.
It's also not Municipal Art Society.
Right. So we're not alone in saying it.
Right.
How I believe what they're saying more than what the city is saying.
But it's a fact that the type 2 are the projects that have no environmental review. And if they don't have an environmental review, we don't have an opportunity to get involved. So we only got
Not an expert.
Well,
and just to Frederica's point, you know, when communities raise issues, it's because the review process doesn't properly take into account what's happening. But at the same time, you know, this is a very well-intentioned plan, right? Or excuse me, I'm going to say well-intentioned plan. The results are very well-intentioned, right? Which is to get housing off the ground faster, but that doesn't mean that they're not impacts. You know, in that warrant review. And I think the Municipal Art Society, you know, we don't know what the unintended consequences are, but you know, that's where in looking at the proposed what we have in front of us here, what was proposed, you know, putting the board's position of it to rule changes that reduce input is a problem, but maybe we didn't have input on these, so.
I feel that if we want to write a letter that's not hostile, that just says, if there's anything about this that would reduce our input, would not be in favor of that. But if this doesn't change the projects that we already don't have input into.
Well, I'm fine with saying, if it, I read, you know, in reading it, I took the impression that we were being circumvented. That was.
We're not.
That is the way it was, the way it's presented, that's the way it can be read.
Well, in about the first 10 minutes, they say no zoning regulations, no land use public review application processes, or building permitting changes will be made. So that was
But I'm perfectly happy to make it conditional. If there is any reduction, we are.
So what you're saying is that it carved out certain areas where it would bog it down, so they're streamlining that, but that's not the areas where we have input.
Yes, that's right. Very good.
And I'm just looking at what's here, just to put in perspective when they say, is it small and medium size? For our community, for the most part, of our existing zoning, these are substantial developments.
Yeah, it would be big.
And, you know, which is, I don't know if we have any R1 to R4 districts. I think
we don't.
Yeah, we're all R6. So under this, that's 250 or fewer units, but those are large developments. We only have a few parcels that might be able to develop in such a way that would result in more.
One of them already.
No, right. I'm just,
yeah.
You know, what are we, you know?
Can I read
That's most of the developments that in our board would be subject to this.
Right, so this is the language from the MAS. And I mean, I have a really high, I loved working with the MAS years past. So type 2 actions. Type 2 actions are less than 250 units where there's no adverse impact and no environmental review. And they write, because type 2 actions do not require further analyses, we are concerned that this may leave the public, community boards, and other interested parties with insufficient information about projects that affect their neighborhoods. This is particularly important because type 2 projects would still have to go through ULURP. So I don't understand. If it's going through ULURP, that's our opportunity to have our input. So, yes, please.
Speak up so that they can hear you.
Look at that. Because I've been kind of reading.
Closer. They won't be. This is the microphone here.
Can hear you.
Come join.
No, because I've been reading on these are 4 different amendments or the proposals. One is with DCP, the other one is with the mayor's office, the other one is with HPD, and the other one I might be blanking on right now. You know, back when HPD came to present about the projects that for 388 Hudson, their initial ideas, they talked about 3 different alternatives, and those alternatives were within the zoning code that exists right now, or
the current.
You know, these are 14 to 17 to 20 story developments that would render units up to 170, which by the definition of these proposals would fit the proposals, would fit the type 2. And you don't always need a ULURP to modify, or like right now, you know, if you work within the confines of the zoning that is there, you can still build pretty high. Now, in these proposals, there is a limit to the height, which I think is 250 feet. But 250 feet is still 20 stories high. And what I think it's something that should be brought up is that this is measured by units alone, not by square feet. So they have the square footage of non-residential use, the square footage of commercial use, and the square footage of community facility is mentioned, but not the square footage of residential space. The only things that are mentioned are those things. And so like, it's kind of vague in that sense, because it just leaves room for a lot of speculation as to what can be built and how big it can be built and how big these units can be. Easily, a building can be 20 stories high and render 37 units, you know, like is the case with this one company that I know, Houseman or something. So those are some concerns.
But in terms of community board review, right?
The community board gets involved in the ULURP, but if there's no ULURP, the environmental assessment is the one opportunity that the community has to give their input. If that is taken away and rubber stamped, I think it.
Well, but that, the person from, with all due respect, the person who responded to me said about environmental assessment as opposed to environmental impact. Environmental impact, we get environmental impact, for example, was Soho NoHo rezoning, right? But she says the level of engagement by the community board and other members of the public depends on the type of environmental review. If an environmental review of a project does not show the potential for impacts, only an EAS is required. This is reviewed by various agencies. And if it gives a negative declaration, the EAS, along with all the land use package materials, are then provided to the community board to be evaluated and to make a recommendation to the CPC during the ULURP process, followed by a hearing and other public approvals. So nothing changes for us. It's simply that they want to put more projects into that category.
Michael? I
Yes.
see your hand.
Yes, thank you. So again, can we repeat easily, what is the purpose of the cap that they are proposing? Is it to speed the process or to reduce the number of projects that would require environmental impact statements? I'm getting a little bit confused in our discussion.
It's the latter. They
Can you
want to
state-
put projects, more projects into the type 2.
And who would make?
And that would be less than 250 units.
Right.
R1 through 4 and less than 175 R through 10. 5
And
through
who
10.
makes?
But also in commercial.
It's not really catering to our neighborhood. I would have to say that this would be a miracle. If we had a few of these pop up, I don't see it happening in our 4 walls.
Thank you, Mike. I see Eugene has his hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I'm looking at the, the green fast track, they're on the ZAP portal, they do have some additional information about the green fast track. And it looks, I think Frederica is correct. They're looking to just change the qualifications for what is a type 2 project by lowering the threshold to 175 from 250. Right. And I
No,
think
there's 2 different, it depends on the, sorry,
R1
it
to
depends
R4.
on the zone.
Right, so R1 to R4. You're correct. So R1 to R4, I think it used to be, or currently it's 250 dwelling units, and they're proposing 175.
No.
For
Sorry.
R4.
It's one number for R through 4 and another number for R5 through 10.
And the number is 175, right?
Yeah, for R.
In the upper, yes, for the upper. It's 175 R1 through 4 and which we have no zoning R1 through 4.
Yeah, that's
Our
okay.
maximum 250 R5 through 10.
Which is just way bigger than anything we have in our district.
Yes.
The one other aspect, I'm just looking at the MAS article, which is just something that's jumping out at me, is the green fast track would also exempt housing proposals up to 250 units in manufacturing districts, as long as they are part of a BSA decision to authorize housing agreement with HPD. So that, to me, jumps out that it is a possibility because we have a couple of small manufacturing areas in the West Village.
Yep.
That are just very small areas. And this just jumps out, but I'm just pointing this out and not, that's something we often overlook, that we have those districts.
And we've had a lot of housing built in them by variance.
Yeah.
But nothing
That's
like
right.
250.
Well, not yet.
No, but that's where.
And that's
what's happening.
right. And the areas which are always raised are the Far West Village meatpacking district. And those are the areas that people regularly have been brought up as areas that, could potentially be rezoned. So.
Yellow freight is next.
And this is a way of, that would remove us from that. But presumably, if it's part of a BSA decision, we would be involved elsewhere.
Or you.
And if it was something with HPD, which would be a miracle, but if that were the case, there's one site I can think of, but I don't know what the landmarking on it might bring, that where that might be the case, a city-owned site.
Can you repeat what you just read?
Sure. It says a green fast track would also exempt housing proposals of up to 250 units in manufacturing districts, so long as they are part of a BSA decision to authorize housing or an agreement with HPD.
Okay. So that's worth our opining on.
Well, but we can't.
Well, we can always write a letter.
Yeah, well, no, but we can't because it's still not a board position and the chair, I mean,
Well, we have,
committee can't.
well, I can
Fine.
just write something up and discuss it at our full board meeting.
It'll be done.
And these things grind very slowly, and if we send something quickly on point,
Deadline is December.
Yeah, the deadline's Saturday.
I'm
Well-
sorry. Frederica, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt because we need to be very clear. You cannot send something out saying a CB2 position on
Right.
this.
no, I'm not
That's-
suggesting that. Susan, I'm not suggesting that. Just
I'm not, and I'm, as I continue, yes, you're right. If there is a possibility to then submit something to the board, even if it's after the deadline, so we are on record, that may be of value. But in looking at this letter, you've got to decide what you're going to do with this letter. Because you can't say that it's a CB2 position. You can only say, but we have been stuck in this position in the past. And what happens is that we say due to a time constraint, only our committee was able to evaluate it, and we raise these concerns. We point out that CB2 has taken positions in the past, and in the case that you cite the language that it deals with, taking out in any way, reducing or eliminating community board input in the process. But it's the way this is currently written, this is a problem letter. So you have to decide what you want to do with it.
So I, to Frederica's point, we could still pass a resolution. It just wouldn't be submitted in time for the deadline, but it could be used as a manner in which to advocate with elected officials or anybody else with respect to this.
Right.
And
But
if
it
the
wouldn't
deadlines were extended, we would have it.
But I don't
And
believe,
that may be the smart thing to do, is to have, if there was a letter to make a deadline saying only the land use committee recognized these issues. It nays note that CB2 has taken positions in the past, which is a fact. And then you go ahead and you pass the actual resolution, which is used as a tool.
right, but my personal feeling is that we should limit ourselves to positions that are actually relevant to changes that they're planning to make. So if they're not planning to change our input, I don't want to complain that our input is, I don't want to bring up the fact that we're on record as being opposed to reductions in our input, because that's not what they're trying to do. The point that you make about the manufacturing, I think, is the point that is relevant to us. So if we want to have a letter about that, I think that's a good idea.
I mean, this may also be impactful in some of our other districts as well, because, one of the things is we don't face this much, but is the removal of buildings and reconstruction. And that's where this would come in. But at the same time, look, I mean, the goals of this are not a bad thing, right? The concern is removing the voice and comments. And, oftentimes we see that as somehow speeding things up when it doesn't meaningfully speed things up. In this case, it may. And but I think what MAS says are the unintended consequences, for us are the issues. And that's always the case. And MAS is very good at identifying that.
They're terrific. And what I would suggest is that we give them a call and ask them to talk more about what they wrote in that little couple of sentences and have them clarify it a little more, because I think it's actually contradictory. It's not their usual clarity.
In what way is it contradictory? That's a very interesting. How do you see it contradictory?
I have to dig it up again.
Well, the whole review, whether or not it was,
Good night.
whether or not we've had any change. It's Federico's point.
Yeah.
That it's really the same.
Here, because type 2 actions do not require further analysis, we are concerned that this may leave the public, community boards, and other interested parties with insufficient information. This is particularly important because applicable type 2 projects would still have to go through EULA. That's the contradiction.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
So
And I read it the first sentence. I read it the way that they say in the first sentence, became concerned. And so that.
Yeah, and if they're going through Euler, then we have a voice. And also, one of the people I spoke with said that the city planning does not have the authority to reduce public review. I thought that was interesting. Well, but I mean, but that was the, he said, we can't even do that. So why don't we just take a minute? I mean, we got this after the meeting started. Why don't we just take a minute and call the people that we worked with in the past, MAS, and ask them to explain.
To clarify?
Yeah. Because the type 2 action is the EAS action. And the EAS action is not the EIS action. The AIS is our.
I also don't think we have to be experts at this. You are not being paid. This is zoning at a very high level. The Municipal Art Society have some of the best planners there are. So I'm all for getting it clarified, but I think the point is we don't want our review accessibility reduced, whether it says this or that. I think it's a little too, we could be, listen, the codes are so complicated. There's footnotes all over the place. And before you know it, you've agreed to something when in fact down in the fine print it says something else. It just happened to me last week. So.
And that's what the MAS did so well, is that they can read it in a way we can't. And you find other experts too, but we rely on.
Well, they also have a repeat theology, I think, which is excellent, is the anticipatory skills of city agents are zero. They have no idea, they have no interest in it, by the way. They just want to create their own storyline, and so
path.
So the MAS article, just to their recommendations and questions, I'm just going to read the bullet points. Conduct a pilot program, increase floodplain restrictions, require type 2 memos, demonstrate compliance with local law 97, remove exemptions in manufacturing districts, evaluate cumulative impacts, prevent segmentation. I mean, these are all the issues that we have with various.
Right. Segmentation is dividing up projects so that they come in under 175 or 250. Yep. And they kind of glossed over that, but as you point out, we don't have.
But the yellow freight is where you could do it.
That's going to be.
That's where they could do the.
At this point.
Yeah. I could see it. Come on, I can.
Well, without
can
going
be
into
mixed
specifics,
use, too.
there are some areas where this could very much come into play through segmentation without.
Bother doing it, trust me.
I don't talk about this if not.
So the question is, obviously we can't meet the deadline for this, but would we want to have something here are our concerns and questions to have it? Because that way we can speak to it if there's another opportunity to.
Yeah.
But these things are moving along at such a rapid rate. And this is what I want to go back to just from, with the committee's relationship, which happens through the chairs with DCP, to make sure that we're out in front of these in the deadlines. Because we seem to be having issues with our pipeline of what comes to us. And we really need to get out in front of that so that we can comment on these. And that pipeline, requires diligence, because DCP isn't necessarily going to tell us if we don't ask, what's happening. But that pipeline, especially right now, because it seems that we have so many different things coming. And it's okay if we choose not to comment on things, but we just need, if we're going to, we have to have.
We want to, we don't want to be.
Right.
I think you have to actually ask some agent in each of these groups. We call them up.
I spoke to 2 of them today.
Okay.
After I submitted my question and I got calls. Okay, and this is, I'm reading you their replies.
I'm talking about in the future, we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's coming up next month?
But did Mark not send you that information about this January 29th information session?
Yes, I got it.
Did we get it?
I didn't send it out.
Okay, well, it's an hour and a half. It's worth listening to. It makes it easier to have an on-point response. And my bottom line is I'm all in favor of something that's relevant, but I'm not in favor of our stating opinions that are contradictory to what they're
Here's Mark's
claiming.
notice. Is that right?
What date was that?
January 23rd.
All right,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's great. Okay.
Okay.
Notice of a presentation. All right, so it was up to us to watch it.
I just,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh.
The bigger thing is getting this on the agenda in time to comment. That's more my point. I mean, whatever else it is, but whatever it may be, it needs to get on the calendar in time within the community board 30-day cycle to get on the calendar. That's why we've advocated, for example, on outdoor dining, that we have enough notice days so it can be concluded. That's one of the positions that we had, that we wanted to take and submit on cannabis, is that we have more than 30 days. It is all about, do we have time to properly review this stuff? And this is a reoccurring problem. If we miss it, we don't get the comments. So.
And if we're not prepared, we're not at our best.
But so for this issue, what if we, does everybody agree? On the committee that we can't make the deadline,
we can.
right?
Oh, no, Rezo.
Yeah, right. So, and I don't think there are any historical positions. I don't know. I didn't look at them. Katie, you looked at them.
Impact.
That would be meaningful to share. And so if that's the case, so we won't be able to do anything for the deadline, but do we want to comment on this to have a board position on it? And if so, what would that be? But it wouldn't be submitted to agent. That's just what it is.
Be submitted. There's nothing to be lost, right?
Yeah, but they cut off submissions. It's
Evaluation.
During my tenure, there were many times when I worked with DCP or CPC around our meeting schedule. And I said, we're only meeting a day before. If we're 4 days late, is it okay? And they never said no.
Frederica, I don't disagree with you, but we know that's when you have the discussion in advance.
Well, we can. still
And
have
here
it.
the deadline's like a couple days away.
Yeah, but it's a couple of days away.
I bet
There's time.
there's no.
And in the
harm asking.
meantime,
We can, so if that's the case, then what are we gonna do?
I think we should really talk to Tom at MAS. He's the guy who came to our meetings a couple of times. I think it was during Anita's and my tenure, and get a little more clarity and not depart from any of our historical positions, but just see how we can refine our language to really be relevant.
Talk to him, meaning Katie and Eugene have a call, or he speaks at our next meeting?
No, there's not time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta talk
So a
to
quick phone call.
Yeah.
I just in reading the MAS conclusion, what they have are recommendations for improving the proposals. It's not necessarily to say no to it, right? And do we even have the expertise or echoing this, the MAS's position?
I think we have to talk to them and just
Right.
learn more, a little bit more.
But tonight's the meeting that we
So it-
have. Meaning,
Sounds like a deny unless.
no, but what I'm saying is that
We're not, nobody's asking us recommend either for or against.
Right.
It's not a ULURP.
Well.
Okay, so it's not,
We don't,
we
give an opinion and
can't
the rest-
deny, we don't have the authority to deny.
Well,
so I'm just
saying.
saying, what are we gonna, do we have the weight to say something, and that we can conclude tonight
Well,
to vote on something? And I just raised this because it's we can go to MAS, but then that's after the meeting.
Well, one idea that I like in this and is good for all projects is to do a test run.
Yeah.
You know, these are and that's the city has a repeat quality to this, making very grand gestures without thinking through the ramifications. And sometimes they're so devastating, and then we live with them forever.
But one of the interesting things I encourage everybody to actually watch the hour and a half. You can watch it at 1.5 times, and most of the time it really works.
Yeah.
But they talk about having reviewed 500 projects in the last 10 years and how the plans that they are proposing would not have affected practically any of the projects that went through the EAS and went through the IAS.
No, but I don't believe it.
I don't believe.
I don't believe
Oh, all
it.
right, fine.
And look, we've had disaster happen.
Okay.
You know, I think.
Yeah.
Based on experience.
Yeah.
We say that like community, I've worked in Queens for a senator. And I've gone to community board meetings, land use meetings as well. I've rarely seen people have the expertise to comment or even understand zoning. And CB2 along with CB1 are one of the best ones at doing that, at having thorough review of things that are going to change. So, so while the city might have said that they have reviewed 55,000, whatever, you know, who really?
What pair of glasses are they wearing?
Yeah.
It's very self-serving, and that's human nature, by the way. That's not even anything necessarily malicious or benign. It's just how they are created.
And so some of the issues that are raised, I think that the cumulative impact aspect for us in our community is potentially significant. We've raised that concern after the fact in Hudson Square.
Many places.
And, you know, it's just as there is a major rezoning that didn't turn out the way that was anticipated. That's the segmentation issue is something that could very easily impact us.
Yeah.
Right, with dividing up parcels and the manufacturing district exemptions. You know, while the MAS thinks it's important to, you know, most of our manufacturing districts are not manufacturing in the traditional sense of other parts of the city. I think it's still important that as we move forward and we have non-traditional uses, there may be, and we also haven't seen the city of yes, whatever is going to happen with that. So that's real, right? I think compliance with local law 97, which, you know, with respect to fossil fuels, et cetera, is very important. The floodplain restrictions for us over on the west side doesn't take much, you know, as we've seen with some of the heavy flooding, right, that's happened in the last even couple months. So that's changing. We have a whole area along Canal Street that the floodplain goes in quite a bit. What happens if you're 5 feet from that, right?
Yep.
So this is just off the top of my head looking through these things. I mean, but I don't know how if responding to this, you know, how we are doing this, if we're asking them to accept it late. All I have in front of me is the MAS. Frederica seems to be the only one who's watched anything else on this. So if we wanted to have a position, what do people want? I don't know if anybody else is reading the MAS article.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
So-
their topics are legit, you know, are a good framework, a good ladder to hold things, you know, throw things on. I agree, you know, in looking at it, I agree with what they
I
say.
mean, would we want to write something that we say we share these concerns?
Okay.
And-
Well, if everyone were to just go to the end of the article, the MAS article, and review the areas that they have concerns about, And if we were to vote on agreeing that, we would talk to MAS about those positions, learn more about them, see how they relate to us, and then write a letter confining ourselves to those previously stated.
We should write a reso.
Yeah.
And ask for.
There's no time for a resume.
Well, it can if it's,
A letter that we submit after.
yeah, but that would still be from the full board. We can't do a letter. It has to be voted on by the full board. Unless it's just a staff.
It can be,
Yeah.
It should be a reso.
Susan, the community board cannot write a letter.
I'm sorry, the community board can send a letter, but the letter is supported, you pass a resolution and the letter is a product. It is an expression of the resolution.
So we still have to wait till the full board
Right.
to get it.
If you want to send something that says CB2 takes this position or CB2 has these concerns, you need to put this before the board.
Right, that makes sense.
All right, but
If you're so concerned about that deadline, then all you can say is that CB2's land use committee has
Right.
discussed this and has raised these concerns. We are unable due to time constraints to put this before the board, but we simply are putting this out there.
So I
And
guess
then-
the question is,
And that's where,
that
that's how
letter
you would, that's how
or a
you.
reso that's even later.
Sorry. Just wanted to say, whatever concerns are brought up, even if they are not an official stand by the community board until the community board resolution is approved, it's still concerns from constituents that government officials can speak and advocate for.
Okay.
I think that that's true, but I think the concern here is also that it may not be the position of all board members.
Right.
And they would like the opportunity to vote on the matter and have an opportunity to express their concerns, which on the product of the community.
You know, what you offer this to the community too. I mean, it's a big thing that is happening.
But I'm not, I mean, is anybody against the concept that they're trying to achieve, which is, or is it how they're getting there? And that's an important.
I think we can, I don't know, definitely we want more housing to be produced more quickly, but we don't want to sacrifice real
Everything, yeah.
review, scrutiny. And we want to keep safeguards in place because haste can make a lot of problems. And even going slowly makes problems. Look at that thing on Fifth Avenue where they wrangled for years and now everything, stopped. And the buildings are falling down around it.
Yeah, and the community tried to get that a little bit lower and they lost by one vote.
And guess what?
At the city land use.
And it's a mess. It's a mess. So, can you read out the MAS concerns again, please, Carter? Let's just put the.
Sure. The heading sections for the recommendations and questions are conducting a pilot program, increasing the
Well, that's a good
floodplain.
idea.
Yeah, increasing the floodplain restrictions. Those are those special districts those are restricted to 6 areas that are not within our area, I believe I saw. Yeah, I think those are not in our areas. Requiring type 2 memos. And it says, because type 2 actions do not require further analysis, we are concerned this may leave the public, community boards, and other interested parties with insufficient information about projects that affect their neighborhoods. So there should be, I guess they're asking that there should be some type of memorandum on that. And it says here, this is particularly important because applicable type 2 projects would still have to go through ULURP. So we wouldn't have any of that information available to us if there's not a memo.
Oh, that's what
So that's that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? And then demonstrating compliance with local law 97. And they're asking that the city go further. They're asking that the city go further and require projects subject to CEQR with the C as opposed to S, regardless of whether they would be listed as type 2 actions to demonstrate how they would comply with local 97. And I think that that's something we would also agree with, right? Removing the exemptions in manufacturing districts. I mean, I think that we need to better understand that because we don't know what those impacts might be.
And that's what MAS is asking for.
Yeah.
So we agree with that position.
Yeah, evaluating cumulative impacts. I mean, this is always an ongoing issue for us. And you know, and just as a reminder, we saw this in the Long Island City rezoning when they came to present to us a number of years back that they don't have enough schools because it was supposed to be all office buildings, but now it's all residential. And each project as an individual project is impact the underlying. And then the preventing segmentation. I mean, I think that most of these are good recommendations, right? And
we can see, we know examples in our community how, you know.
And I mean, while it wouldn't necessarily be our own work product, we want to reference this as concerns and rely on that work.
Well,
or are we creating something independent?
Well, they're
And if
working.
so, what's our independent?
Experts, which I think really makes a big difference. So I think we can.
I agree, but do we want to add anything of our own into this? And that's, you were at the presentation, so I don't.
I listened to the presentation a week later,
Mhm.
so I'm on a par with everybody else who listens to it in the next day or two. And I don't think that's as important as if we think that if we talk to MAS and we understand their position, I would not want to parrot what MAS says without talking to them.
Right.
And understanding it and hearing what they think how it relates to us. But if that pans out, then I'd be happy to either mention MAS or not.
So I don't know, I'm sorry, just in the interest of moving this forward, because I know people are probably falling asleep.
Well, only 13 people.
Okay, but we would want to vote on this, that we would do this absent, right, some feedback from MAS that might have us not take that position, right?
Right. You know, when we look at the affordable housing on Hudson Street and they tell us it's going to take 10 years for the building to develop, you think fast, why does it have to take so long? So I know the city is trying to make that point that things could go faster. So there's an example when I read that, I thought, well, in our own district, when they said at our early meeting, it would take 8 to 10 years, people in the audience gasped, you know, oh my God, that's going to take so long. So it doesn't exactly pertain to what they're talking about and where we lose input, but it's an example of things are too slow.
We have another example of that without mentioning names of another affordable housing development that seems to knows what's happening.
And
it is
that we know they've had they have had community input opportunities, which we feel are meaningless. So there's a mixture of, you know, what's meaningful input and what's box checking.
in that, I mean, this is a good, in that case, that's not, these are other impacts, right?
Would this be exempt under the manufacturing?
I don't think that's not a manufacturing.
It's outside this.
380 at Hudson Street is in what kind of a zone?
I think they're looking to.
I know, but this,
Right, so
isn't it?
as of right projects, right?
Yeah.
So
It might
not,
yeah, but we might not have to go through ULIP, but this would only be if it were fewer than 250 units. We're flirting with the higher number. Where?
Well, that could shift because
Right.
the cutoff would be encouraging stuff.
Ah.
Oh, interesting point.
And then the other elements is it's by unit, not by size of the units. And I think that's right. And in this, because the beneficiary of this is the public, and that's what we're advocating for at 388 Hudson. This is not what a private developer, as Roy pointed out, who knows how many units. Square footage doesn't necessarily correlate. And we've been seeing that a lot. The demand for these outsized luxury units in our board, which are not necessarily helpful.
And then people
to the
buy through and
production
put
of
it together later on. I mean, okay.
May I ask where we are now with what we're going to be doing? I'm getting a little bit lost in the variety of concerns. Are we doing a letter? Are we going to vote on it? Are we going to do a letter stating the opinion of the land use committee, which we can then in the future present to the full board for a resolution? Where are we in our discussion?
I think the answer is neither. It's going to be a resolution to establish a position, which could then, if somebody is able to figure out to whom to send it.
Everybody.
Meaning if we don't have meaning if we miss the cutoff date and are not able to submit it, could we send that to our elected officials and say?
But doesn't city planning have a community liaison person for our community board? Have you ever called them?
Not about we discussed the 388 Hudson with them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, that was HPD, not C. But I believe that
planning has been in on it too.
if you or Eugene were to call city planning and get to the right person and tell them what our situation was, I really would be surprised if they didn't say, send your letter or send your resume.
I agree with you.
So let's
agree.
do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's do that and let's talk to MAS.
Yes, but we could tonight.
And can we vote on agreeing to confining ourselves to the points that MAS makes? And if there's a couple others that come up and everybody sees the letter that we can approve,
But the letter,
or the
regardless.
sorry, the reso.
I think Susan made a very good point about what letters are derived from resolution. It not necessarily standalone letter. We very rarely send standalone letters. They are almost 100% derived from a standing board position, which is created through a resolution. It doesn't mean the board can't communicate through letters, which it certainly can, but it needs to be based off of a past board resolution.
Right.
And in the majority of cases, I'm sure there's an exception, but I don't think this is one of them. Is that right, Susan?
Yes, if you're producing a letter, you are constrained by what's come before. If there's no resolution on point. And sometimes when we get, because things are sent to us with too little time, we do craft something that stays within the lines, but it's limited in nature. I don't know that it's in the board's interest to send out something that is truly limited when we can figure out ways to get an actual resolution to the right people. It was mentioned, for example, we send our resolution to our elected reps. Let them help us get it into the hands of other people as well. Not just we doing it directly, but it's a sort of like a multi-angle assault in a sense, to get it into the right hands. Just to send something out for the sake of sending out may not really, we may look weak. We may look ineffective if that's all we're going to do is focus on the deadline.
But if the chairs call the city planning and they get an okay that they will read whatever we send in a few days late because of our time constraints, then we have a week to put together a resolution based on, for now, the points that MAS has made. That's what I'm suggesting.
But I'm okay. we could put together a resolution, even if they say no, they're not going to accept it late. We could still put together a resolution to submit to them and to the elected officials and be a little powerful about it.
It is valuable enough to have a resolution, even if people at first say no, because you do want to be on the record and you do want to, this is a long-term process. This is not a one-off. It's like, we need that on the record anyway.
Okay, so here, can I?
I was just gonna say, Eugene, you emailed some stuff with the letters from just tell everybody, I'm not sure everybody's seen that.
Yeah, I was just looking on the official webpage for, the rulemaking, and I don't think this is all of them, but I did send the link out in the chat, and I also sent an email out to the committee members, but people that have submitted comments so far, and there are 8 comments. Some of these are letters. There is notably one letter/comment from someone, I think it's Bronx Community Board 8, where they're writing on behalf of the community board or a specific committee from Community Board 8 in the Bronx. But just to give an idea, it would be helpful to kind of look at those and see what some of the other letters are. They seem to be majority in support of this, maybe about half, half in support, half not in support.
But just to remind you that what was behind that letter, we don't know. And there may very well be a resolution that supports that letter. And it may be that where the position we want to end up in is to support the concept, but then be wary of some of these.
I think Eugene sent it out. No, he didn't?
I don't think so, but don't even bother.
Oh, no. Okay, so this is what I'm hearing. Eugene and I are tasked together or separately, however our schedules work, with calling DCP and asking for if we can submit, I guess next Friday, because that's when the resolution would be ready. We're also going to talk to MAS to review and their comments. We're going to put together a resolution based on the, 8, 9 points that the MAS made about concerns in this concerns with the green fast track housing proposal rulemaking. But we will get more information from MAS about it, and we will clarify what MAS sees as sort of a lack of or a reduction of community input or review.
Those few sentences.
Yeah, we'll clarify that because I think that's something that's very close to our hearts. How have I recapped properly?
Yeah, also I think understanding what specific areas are vulnerable or maybe not vulnerable, but could come under this.
So like examples.
MAS, they would know,
Some examples in our community that relate,
specifically,
yeah.
Because I think it's going to be such a small.
Okay, yeah, get specific examples.
Availability of land for this kind of thing.
For CB2 for each concern. If it turns out that the floodplain is not applicable to us, should we leave it out?
It is applicable, even if it's not on their map.
Well, it was not on their map, actually.
I know.
I mean, the biggest egress, the floodplain, and I have not looking at it, but I believe, does anybody have any recollection if it's that Canal Street?
Canal, West Broadway, and
is the big
different areas.
Yeah, and
the Soho Hotel, that whole area.
It's an old canal.
Yeah.
That's where water goes.
And the swamp, was a swamp.
And then along the western, along the river, it has a little bit in and out.
Yeah.
How far it comes in, right?
Yeah, it does. But it follows the natural river line. The Sandy brought the Hudson River back to its own border.
Right.
Its own banks.
Well, the rising water is changed the whole, there was so much mechanical equipment that was damaged. That's where you can tell where the flooding was, and there was all up and down through Soho.
Mhm.
But they had to, that's why they moved it above the second floor now.
Exactly. Okay, is this okay? Does this sound good? Are we-
Yeah, sounds like a lot of work for you.
So, is this a unanimous decision, unanimous
Why don't we take a
passage?
vote? Raise your hand.
Yes?
On, ask for show of
What?
hands.
Show of hands, yeah, show of hands, 'cause it's a little easier from on line. Show of hands, okay, unanimous. And it will go up on Google Docs. Now, we do have one item of new business. That I don't, we received a request from SL Green to come to our committee and talk about gaming.
SL Green owns my building.
They own a lot of buildings. That's
I mean,
powerful.
they want to open one of the casinos around Penn Station. They wanted to.
That's- Yeah, so it's not specifically around game, it's not around gaming in general, it's around a specific project. And let me forward the email from Mark, if that's okay. To the committee, but why don't you go ahead and continue and
Trying to,
describe this?
I'm trying to bring it up on my phone. Can you tell me the subject line, Eugene? Do you know the subject line of the email?
Are you trying to find the one from Mark?
Yes, yes.
It says external meeting request, CB2 Land Use Committee.
Okay.
Here, I'm going to forward the very last one from Mark, which also has the information from CBs 5 and 6.
Yeah. Is this about the casino, Eugene, in Midtown?
Yes, this is around the casino. So this is around specifically a casino that they are trying to open at Times Square. Yeah, 1515 Broadway, which is very odd because, that's clearly not in our district. Right, so it is very odd that they approached us.
I think they're trying to get citywide support.
Mhm.
It's so competitive. Yes, I think that is true. And
They're seeking support where they can find it.
So they're looking for a recommendation from us?
Did you send something, Eugene?
my name is Garrett Armwood. I'm Vice
Yeah.
President of SL
Did you
Green
send it?
Realty.
I'm sending it now.
I'm reaching out to you because we would like to present the zoning impacts of our response to the New York State Gaming Facilities Location Board. While our project does not sit within CB2, we understand, respect, and value feedback and input we get from community boards. Please let me know if CB2's Land Use Committee is willing to meet with us. And then Mark did a little, research this afternoon and, found that CB5 has emphatically disapproved the text amendment, and CB6 did not elaborate, but was similarly dismissive of an attempt to end run ULURP. So according to other district managers, every CB2 who opined on the gaming text amendment opposed it. And I know that Susan has her hand up because she can tell us what she did about this amendment at a borough board.
At Borough Board, this was, I believe, either unanimously or practically unanimously voted down. And I think we do have to be careful that we don't undermine the, positions of the impacted boards. It's not for us to,
Right.
It sounds like this may be a divide and conquer kind of a mentality. Now, when I voted against it, it was on the basis the actual resolution was identified as problematic, the fact that this zoning change would remove it from the ULURP process. And since we have clearly stated that we do not support attempts to remove projects from a ULURP process, I had guidance on it. But this is, there is
Oh, you froze.
disappointment with this. Oh,
Yeah, no,
okay.
did we get?
And
Go ahead, Eugene, sorry.
I could also add, I mean, just because we have the request doesn't mean we need to entertain them coming to land use. You know, I actually have doubts whether it would be productive. You know, I think we're perfectly in our rights to simply not have them come, right? I mean, there's absolutely no reason that we should listen to them because it's outside of our district. And, you know, we may be walking into something where, you know, what's the next step? If we invite them, are we going to have a resolution? You know, are we not gonna have-
Why don't you and Katie agree to have a preliminary conversation with them, and then you can decide after hearing what they have to say, whether you want to bring it to the committee or not.
We could do that. I mean, I thought, given the timing that it just happened this afternoon, that we would just bring it to the committee. Just to also bring the committee up to speed on some of the things that are happening and also to help set the agenda. So, you know, we wanted to kind of just get some feedback from the committee, you know, on what the thoughts were, just, you know, nothing binding, but just as a way to just set our agenda for the next couple of months. Is this something that the committee's interested in hearing?
Well, I think we need to step back and ask a couple of questions first. One, is it relevant to our board? You know, is this pitched as some sort of citywide thing, or, you know, and two, how would we feel if another board were entertaining discussion on a matter within community board 2 in this way? And I think CB5 is the area.
One.
I don't find any reason to not follow their lead on this. And to your point, which was, thank you, but no.
In terms of having a meeting?
Yeah, it's in the email, whatever their specific response. But I think it conveys strength. Actually, this is an interesting way of identifying this from our committee. But I think it shows strength if the committee were to choose not to entertain this, because that in and of itself sends a message. Unless there's something redeeming that they can convey in an email, I just don't even know why we would step up. I mean, this is the type of thing that in my experience over the years makes people apoplectic when you try to circumvent another board by doing this. And we regularly hear this along our waterfront on the west side with Hudson River Park, you know, over and over on positions when it's not in our board. People, you know, feel strongly, and this is a huge project. I'd rather support the other board, and they've not asked for it.
Right, no, they haven't. Sean has his hand up. Wait a minute, Sean has his hand up.
Yeah, it's been long-standing policy of this community board that we do not interfere with other community boards. We don't like it if they would start interfering with our resolutions. So I think we should either just ignore it. Thank you.
The last time this came up, if memory serves me correct, was with respect to CB2 adopted a position supporting CB1 on the development of the new jail.
Right.
And if I remember correctly, that's the last time that we have stepped out of our bounds, and that was to support.
But at CB1's behest.
And because, right, at their behest, and also because there were some impacts on us sharing Canal Street and its proximity to that and the height of the tower and, you know, shadows, et cetera, that did cast into our district.
I would rather talk to the CBs, and Mark has already reached out to them, and they didn't say, we need your help at this point. I mean, that's
Right. But in terms of, I'm not reading the whole thing now, but said something about impact. And as a tourist destination, I think CB2 would be very impacted by whatever additional tourist traffic was generated. And so we would be very affected. And maybe the thing to do is to work through Susan, to work through Borough Board or see if they're looking for input. But I do think we'd be a very affected area.
Well, years ago, they wanted to put a casino barge at Pier 40 and maybe even a casino. I think one of the projects would have the Cirque du Soleil. We've heard about casinos before, but now they're stayed away from us.
They're using the fact that because there's a zoning text amendment, which is technically a citywide amendment, that's how they're using it as a hook to then go visit other boards that aren't directly affected. And that's, and they can go visit as many boards as they want. Well, it's a citywide text amendment. It's like, if we're not sure, then reach out to those boards that are directly affected and say, what are you thinking about this?
So as a follow-up, in anticipation of something and to avoid problems, we might want to entertain any requests from CB5 should they want us to support their position instead. And have a brief presentation from them next month, or review their resolution and take a position on that, because that would, I don't know how this might come up, but clearly they want this for something, right?
Yeah, I think it's.
And then if we just take a proactive stance for the board to have a position on it.
Yeah, I think it's a little dangerous. Personally. I hope, if there's no more discussion on this point, I hope that you have looked at, I don't know if Mark sent it to everyone, but I looked at the capital and a budget expense 2025 answers from the agencies. And maybe we should discuss it next month, because the city doesn't seem to be interested in a rec center in the bottom of 388 Hudson.
Well, I would say, I think you should get more information on that response and how it fits into the matrix of the project, because it may fit in differently than we asked, which I noticed was a consistent response from the city. Like, it was constantly the wrong agency, or we didn't phrase it right. And, that's because we looked at this as political statements is the word that always is used during the executive session. But if we're asking the wrong people, it doesn't, who is our political statement to versus the practical use of what those requests are for, which is a separate discussion. But to this, I think we should find out more.
Yeah, just
and also make
information.
those responses public, send them around to.
Yeah, Mark sent it to all the board members.
When?
A few days ago.
The last few days.
I don't know, last week something. I think he sent it to everybody. It may have just been the executive committee, but I didn't look.
We'll check on that for Rico.
To go back to your point though about topics, and Eugene, you raised that. I mean, I think just in echoing just what Frederica, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the pipeline for the cities. There's a lot of things going on for these larger projects, and it's February, and it's going to be summer before anybody notices. And just, can we understand where all of our attention, if we need to get moving behind stuff, because the city seems to be very active. I'm not familiar with all the projects, but it would be helpful to get from our DCP liaisons.
Yes.
What is happening, what's expected of us, what's a timeline of some of these things. And that might help people, on the committee, know what to go to, for example, Frederica, attending that and just having people bring information in a manner that's helpful.
Okay.
I know when I was chair and Frederica was chairing the committee, we spent a lot of time talking about, that pipeline. Maybe we didn't use that word, but just what was happening and making sure we had adequate time to review things and that it meshed with the calendar and that we didn't have too much on any one month. And they were very accommodating to work on certain things and not so much on other things, but they were upfront ahead of time on what that was. But it's a really important, so we just don't miss the opportunities to comment.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and that's good input, Carter. I mean, I think that we can definitely have, Katie and I can talk with the DCP. Perhaps it's been a little bit of time since we've talked to them. I think most of our discussions have been around 388 Hudson.
Yes, definitely.
A bit of a breather and talk to them about some of the other projects. I know that Katie and I have talked about the City of Yes. The third part of the City of Yes is going to be the housing. And so, there are definitely some road shows that the city has started around this. I know that they had a presentation in November that I'll send around the links for that. But if everyone has not had a chance to listen to that, it's very good. I think there were some very good questions that came up in that session. So I would listen to that, maybe fast forward the DCP portions and maybe concentrate on the questions that came up, because I was listening to that when it happened live and I thought the questions were very, very good. We're trying to figure out how much of that is going to be relevant for us versus the outer boroughs. It seems like a lot of what they're trying to propose may affect the outer boroughs more than us. They're talking about things like adding, support for ADUs, town centers, things like this. So that really speaks more toward the commuter satellites of the city. But again, that is the big one coming up, and we don't want to be under the gun when that officially does get sent out for the community board review.
So I actually, when I came back from I was out of the country, and I watched the one that we've been talking about, the Green Fast Track, but I also watched something from January 30th called Universal Affordability Preference. That was one of them that was in the email from Mark. I think there's 4 of them. One in January, maybe the next one isn't until March, but that was very useful. That some of it was not relevant, but a lot of it was talking about MIH and the AMIs that they're targeting the projects for.
Oh.
And I think that's something that was longer, but as I said, 1.5 is usually pretty good.
Yeah, that would be a good one I think that would be very relevant with 388 Hudson coming down the pipe as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the largest environmental review ever.
In the world, probably.
In their
In our area.
But that's always the world. If we do, it's got to be bigger.
Right,
Will you
and I think
to that, resend the link to that.
It's in one of Mark's emails.
I don't know which one. From which date?
What?
I'll look it up for you. But I think if you and Eugene send out these notices of presentations, that somehow it's more immediate than.
One of the helpful things that Frederica, she knows this, but if we advocate with DCP and if you talk to them and have a monthly standing, check-in, it also puts us in a position to be earlier on the list for presentations to us.
Yeah.
And it really moves us ahead because we're in front of the issues, and it makes it easier for everything to fall in place with the board having enough time and moving things along. And that's something that, they aren't always interested in, accommodating all the requests. So if we're ahead of time, we know when they're going to schedule them beforehand. So we can better schedule our monthly meetings because we only meet once a month, and that's, you know, the biggest challenge of a community board is it's a 30-day cycle and nothing fits very easily into that 30-day cycle. And that's one of the biggest benefits, is when they're doing those presentations that we can get them
Early, yeah.
early.
Also, every month you're following up because you say, well, what about that project? Oh, yeah, that's coming up a little later than blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it becomes a checklist.
And also, when Anita and I were chairing the committee, when we would get something like 110 Christopher from BSA, we would call BSA and say, have you calendared this? And if you haven't calendared it, what's your time frame? And then we knew that we didn't have to jump to have meet with them the first time they asked. So it might have been that we could have asked the attorney, you know, what's the schedule, and have you notified the building residents and done a little bit of the
Ahead of time.
preliminary work before it hits the committee.
You know, that's been a back and forth because we waited for another one to be calendared. And then when it was calendared, I forget which one.
Has it been calendared?
No.
No, the McDougal,
Then when it
no,
was
the other,
Monty's.
yeah, the McDougal.
Then when it was we waited, and then when it was calendared, he couldn't come. It was a mess. So it's a fine line sometimes to walk. I appreciate it because we were trying to do that.
And you can have like a couple of questions that you ask, a checklist for the attorney before we
And
put on our agenda.
I had spoken to Katie briefly, but you know, one of the other things that would be helpful is if the committee had, and I didn't talk about this, but if the committee had some references on the community board's website of what are the criteria for certain applications, so that if committee members are interested in looking, we can better understand what we can weigh in on.
It sounds like a lot of work.
It's not a lot of work. It's just links to the specific agencies, so that you know, people can review whatever it is that to better understand. I mean, that's just a helpful just to just focus in on what we're doing. I know that's not easy, but it's not like things change that much in land use, and the agencies that are responsible for
Last year was all about.
No. I meant the agencies.
Oh. Okay. We're managing a lot of changes. So
Yes.
The
that's
agencies
true.
themselves.
Well, right now, it's like they can't move fast enough, boy. Let's make more retail fast. We really need it. Hurry.
Okay.
One other thing, just want to add just one other thing in terms of things that are happening. Katie and I are also reaching out to Carlina's office. We'd like to, now that Carlina has more of our district, more of CB2 in her footprint, you know, we'd like to reach out to her and, you know, establish some communications with her and her land use person if she has one. If there are certain issues that you'd like us to bring up, you know, let us know. You know, I think it's been a while since we've talked to Carlina specifically.
Well, one thing
yeah.
I would bring up with her, I mean, since she's head of whatever it's called, the arts committee.
Right.
What's, you know, how does that connect to this area? Because it makes no sense. So it'd be a good, you know, good thing to see what she's thinking.
She's also on the land use committee.
She's chair of the other committee.
Yes, and we're also, Eugene and I are also going to be following up on, at Susan's suggestion, on the topic of community land trusts, because that is something that might be applicable to 388 Hudson, but no, it hasn't come up in, you know, the city hasn't brought it up. So we're going to look at that a little more deeply and see if we.
Right, I believe that's called social housing, and there was a big article in the Times in the last week.
So absolutely.
So had a presentation on community land trust.
But not about this issue.
No, I'm just, I mean, what does that even mean? How do we?
Well, we got to go back to it. Yeah, Mitchell-Lama, Frederica, which is right across the street, and which I was in, is this huge social housing. And it's amazing that now it has a new name, but New York has been doing it for a long time. So
Well, those are run out. That's the 30-year mark, right?
well, the co-ops aren't. The co-ops are still in. The co-ops are still in. Want to protect.
Is there anything else that the applicant's gonna go reach out to the residents for the 110 Christopher? Is there anything else that we need to?
He was going to, for one, they relayed it over. He was going to flyer it and he's coming back on March 13th. Those are my notes.
I have a question. Do we need to officially take a vote to lay it over? No.
I don't think so. Donna, do we need
We're not taking a vote to move it forward.
I know, well, Donna's also committee chair. Susan.
Yeah, I mean, we usually have the applicant, because they would move forward with it. You know, he said he's not moving forward with it in SLA. We have them write in to say that they won't go to the SLA, that they're laying it over and won't further the application until they appear before us again.
But since they're not calendared.
They're not even calendars, so I don't.
It's irrelevant, yeah.
But maybe we should send him an email to that effect. You know.
Just confirm what he says.
Yeah, Cindy.
And copy our DCP layer, our land use, whoever the relevant land use liaison is at BSA, right?
Well, I don't even have his email address, so I got.
No, it's.
May do it. Okay. Regarding layover. Okay, I just have to write notes. Okay. Thank you all for tonight, and I will endorse Eugene's Happy Valentine's Day greetings to everyone. Anita is one of our, she's in the spirit of the holiday.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you. Now, how do we, Carter, how do we close down the?
Good night, everybody.
Bye, nice to see you. Can you close the meeting as the host?
Michael, when are you coming back?
Or do we need to?
Oh, I will be back in 1 week on February 20th.
Okay, great.
Okay.
You want to close out the meeting too?
Yeah, you've been good. Isn't he good though? Not a
Very good, Anita.
good job.
Has he had special classes recently?
He what?
Has he had special lessons recently, or is this just a
Maturity.
Training and maturity.
He's good all along.
So he's been good all along, absolutely good.